And I'm going to send it to Facebook. It's preparing to live stream. Awesome. I think we are a go.
You're good.
So I'm gonna get started, and we're gonna have an awesome evening. All right. Thank you everyone for joining us. Welcome to the Saskatchewan Quits virtual panel discussion. My name is Bethany. I am the Health Promotion Coordinator with the Lung Association of Saskatchewan. And I'd really like to thank our partners who've been involved with Saskatchewan Quits this month. So our title sponsor, Nicorette, as well as our partners, the Heart and Stroke Foundation and the Pharmacy Association of Saskatchewan. A big thank you to our panelists for being here, our 3 community ambassadors, Christy, Dale, and Steve, who Jen is going to introduce, as well as Dr. Erica Penz and Corey Gambler. So I'm really looking forward to hearing what you all have to say today. Thank you for being here, and thank you to our viewers who are coming to watch and ask questions. We're really excited to have you here as well this evening. So we're from all over Saskatchewan tonight, which is really exciting. And I want to acknowledge that I'm in Saskatoon, and I'm acknowledging my presence on Treaty 6 territory, the ancestral and traditional territory of the Cree, Dene, Blackfoot, Saulteaux, Nakota Sioux, and the land of the Métis. I acknowledge the many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit whose footsteps marked the lands for generations. So thank you all for being here tonight. A couple of housekeeping items before I turn it over to Jen. So I'll just ask that if you are not a panelist or Jen, that you keep your camera and microphone off. We are recording the Zoom call, so for your own privacy, as well as just for the ease of streaming, I'll just ask that you keep the camera and microphone off. If you're joining us on Zoom, you can ask questions in the chat. If you're joining us on Facebook Live, you can ask your questions in the Facebook comments. So that's where we'll direct the questions, and I'm monitoring the chat, Jen is monitoring the chat, and then my colleague Kelly is watching the Facebook. So we'll make sure those questions get to Jen to ask our panelists. And I think, oh, and also just the last thing, if you have any comments that you'd like to share as you're kind of hearing the questions, maybe it's not directly a question, feel free to share that in the comments as well. If you've got any extra tips that you want to add that might be helpful for people as we answer these questions tonight. So on that note, I'm just going to quickly introduce Jen and turn it over to her. Jen Cannell has been a great asset to Saskatchewan Quits this month. She's done the interviews with our 3 community ambassadors, and if you haven't had a chance to watch those, you can check them out on the Lung Association of Saskatchewan's YouTube. There's 3 really great interviews there, and then she is running our panel tonight. So I will turn it over to you, Jen.
All right, thank you so much, Bethany, and thank you to everyone who's here and taking part in this because of the Lung Association of Saskatchewan. And I'm just gonna get right to it. I want to introduce our panelists, and I'm actually going to start with Corey Gambler. And I know in our land acknowledgement, we said we're on Treaty 6. He's on Treaty 4. And I think we have other people in different treaty areas right across Saskatchewan tonight. So Corey, you might recognize because he has spent 15 years working with people with different levels of addiction. Right now, he's working with the File Hills Capel Health Services tobacco cessation program. He's actually running it. And through nicotine replacement therapies, he's helping people cut down and quit how much they're smoking. There are quit smoking challenges that Corey runs. And he also really draws on the cultural teachings that elders in I think there's 11 different communities that File Hills serves. So using that knowledge, he's helping so many people. And Corey, thank you so much for joining us tonight. You're just gonna give us a wave. All right, also next to him in the little boxes that I can see, Erica Penz. Now she's a respirologist, and if you ask her, that means she's an adult lung doctor. And she's an associate professor also in the College of Medicine in the Division of Respirology, Critical Care, and Sleep Medicine. She's the program director for all the trainees going through respirology, and she's particularly interested in smoking cessation, especially when it comes to smoking and vaping for teenagers, for young people. Erica actually co-founded and co-facilitates Youth for Change, and that's a program aimed at young people. It's all about smoking cessation, just leaving the tobacco and the vaping behind. And I'm just going to mention right here, she has a couple of daughters. They're both teenagers, so she's going through that. She's got a couple of Labrador retrievers, so it sounds like things also busy on the home front. But when there are medical questions and wondering, okay, in like a physiological sense, what's going on with me, Dr. Pens has so many answers for us. So we're going to be hitting you up tonight for those. Thank you so much, Erica. All right, this is the part where I'm actually going to ask you to unmute if you are one of the Saskatchewan Quits community ambassadors. And I think I'll just go in alphabetical order. So Steve Kerwin, you're up. Can you tell us just a little bit about why you decided to say yes to being a community ambassador? Because you're sort of midway through your journey with trying to give up the habit.
Well, to be completely honest, it might be the kick in the pants that I need to get going. I've tried many times on my own, and I'm in the middle of my own fight right now. And I found that the camaraderie and the support through this Saskatchewan Quits Facebook group and just some of the people that have reached out to me has been really good, kind of kept me on track and kept my mind pointed to where I want to go. So I appreciate it. And thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And I'm going to move next to Dale Roach, who is in Moose Jaw tonight. Hey there, Dale. I know that your quitting journey started a lot longer than Steve's ago, but can you tell us what you're finding valuable about being one of these community ambassadors?
My journey started a long time ago, but the fact is that if I took even lit a cigarette today, I'd be smoking again tomorrow. So, I mean, you have to be aware of that. And I don't think it's ever over, it's constant, but I just think that it was such a struggle to not be smoking that, anything that we can do to help is going to benefit someone somewhere. And we've struggled through so many things with this and tried different methods, and everybody has a different idea. So if something, that we can contribute to help someone, I'm all for it.
Thank you so much, Dale, for being here. And I have one last community ambassador I want to ask, Christy Temple-Brisky. I think your screen appears to be a little bit frozen right now, but I'm just going to say Christy is in Saskatoon. And are you able to talk with us right now, Christy? Are you working on getting your internet going? Going to go with Christy's working on getting her internet going. We will come to her for some of those tips, and for some of just people who have been there, just get it. And I can see Corey nodding through this. I can see Steve nodding through this. I think one of the things we want to do is just get to some of the questions that have already been asked. And once again, if you're watching this on Facebook Live, just put them right in the comment section, even if it's just an observation or what you're hoping to get out of being here for the next just over half an hour or so. One of the questions we have that came from a group is, I suffer from anxiety. How can I manage a flare-up of anxiety symptoms while I'm withdrawing from nicotine? Because I could see that could be a bit of a double whammy. I'm going to throw this to both Erica and to Corey. So Dr. Pens, when it comes to anxiety and the flare-ups of symptoms, how can you deal with that as you're trying to cut down the nicotine in your life?
I think that's a great question, because it's very, very common for people to describe the feelings of anxiety. And really, when you think about, where nicotine acts in our brain, it, triggers that center, that dopamine and that pleasure response. That's why people actually develop, the habit and this craving for nicotine. The same goes for, where we feel our emotions, where we sense anxiety, and they're all in that same place. So it's not surprising physiologically that people are going to feel like that. I think that what's important for people to know is that physiologically, when we are withdrawing from nicotine, that kind of those symptoms, especially the anxiety, could peak, okay, in the first few days, but they can last for even a couple of weeks. And so, number one, knowing that is really valuable, because then at least you can prepare. And perhaps Corey might be able to comment on, that preparation that might come from knowing that you're going to feel not great and perhaps even worse anxiety than baseline. Corey, I'm not sure if you have a comment.
Yeah, I can just add to that. Someone that has anxiety, I have anxiety myself. So understanding that when you get into those peaks, how long it lasts with that anxiety, trying to quit smoking, it makes it so much more difficult. But the one thing that really helped me with my quit journey, when I used to smoke was my culture. I went to ceremonies, I went to sweat ceremonies, and it actually helped me lower my anxiety levels because I was more calm when I was in that sweat lodge. So that's one area that really, really helped me as a First Nations man, was going to our cultural and going back to our ceremony, long before we even knew that anxiety existed. We went back to those our cultural ways. So that's what really helped me.
And it's interesting that you could feel the difference, Corey, in your regular life where, yeah, the symptoms of anxiety would sometimes flare up as you're trying to cut out the nicotine. What what did you notice about the times you were in ceremony? Like, where was your head at then compared to the other parts of your life where you would feel the anxiety coming back at you?
Honestly, when I was in the ceremonies, when I was in the sweat lodges, it tends to get you focused on one thing. And when you're in those ceremonies, it's very, very, very hot. It's like 10 times hotter than going into a sauna. Let's put it into perspective. And when you're in there, you need to focus on your breathing. You need to focus on what you're, thinking about, what you're praying about, and things like that. So when you're kind of out in the real world and you have these anxieties starting to come to you, you kind of go back to that same mind frame. Okay, I'm putting myself into that ceremony, and this is how I dealt with it then. So this is how I'm going to deal with it outside that ceremony. So you kind of use that same mindset as you would in a ceremony.
Awesome. Thank you. And Christy, this is where I'm going to bring in Christy Temple-Brisky, actually, because I think your internet's working again. I know that throughout your quitting journey, it wasn't just you, it was also your partner that you said, we are quitting and we are done now. But did you ever, during that time, were there times where you could fear the anxiety, I'm not good with this, those almost choking feelings coming up for you ever? Or have you seen people being able to take action that, like Corey said, where they can kind of focus just on the one thing, that one moment, just getting through that?
Well, generally I suffer from some anxiety normally. So when you add trying to quit smoking, and for me, my mom, was diagnosed with a terminal illness all at once. So absolutely, I had to just focus on what was important. And I had to, I spend a lot of time having hot baths and just walking, just to try and think and put things into perspective of what's really important. And that definitely helped me not smoke, because it was a rough go for me, definitely.
Yeah. And just so that anybody who might not have actually seen the interview that we did together, sort of your TSN turning point was your mom's illness, but then it was very much about dealing with that and trying to quit. There's a lot of everything wrapped up in there, wasn't there, Christy?
For sure. And I tried quitting multiple times before. I went to hypnosis, and I tried cold turkey before, and I tried Nicorette, and I tried all the things, but until your mind is really set, yeah,
It's
it
tough.
was tough. My husband was a great asset for me. And I also had to help him quit smoking, because where he worked, he actually had a lot of challenges of people trying to give him cigarettes while he was quitting. So I had to be that voice in his ear, which also helped me as well.
And
But you need a buddy system for sure.
Well, yeah, having the social support around you, how much of a factor is that? I can see, Corey, can you kind of weigh in on that? Just the people who you are around, especially if you're around people at work who are still going out for smoke breaks, if you're around friends who are, or they're going to go out just for a puff. What advice do you give the people in your programs? Because they're also using different methods, whether it's the patch or sometimes gum. What works, Corey, especially with those social settings?
It varies from person to person, because I've had this discussion so many times with people, and I've asked them, what's the one thing that really gets you back into that? They're like, oh, the visiting part, the social part of going out, having that smoke with that person, right? And I try to get them to understand, okay, through those times, if they're going out, what can you do in that short 2-minute span that's going to be healthy for you, right? So then they start thinking, doing brainstorms, well, maybe I can go for a walk in the gym or go for a walk around the building. Those are some things that I try to get them to think differently in those 3 to 4 minutes when they're having that cigarette. That's the one thing that helped me quit. My friends would always go out and go have smokes, and they'd be like, come on, and try. I've quit so many times. Like Christy, so many times I've tried to quit. My friends would bring me out there and offer me cigarettes, but it came to a point where, for me, it is in my mind. As soon as I made it up in my mind, that was it. I was done. I was done for. So.
And there is a role too, and a very effective one, for things like chewing the gum, for the patch. And I wonder if Dr. Pence, can you comment on that? And then maybe Dale, after you listen to Dr. Pence.
You bet. Yeah, so there's a few ways that we can actually help people pharmacologically, so with medicine, to help them through their journey. And one of them is to actually replace that nicotine that you're no longer getting by smoking the cigarette. And the nice thing about the nicotine replacement is that you can do it in a number of ways. You could do it with a patch on your skin. You can use, and that can provide a baseline level of nicotine. And we often will dose it depending on kind of, if you've been smoking a pack a day or a half a pack a day, that will adjust where you're going to start. Okay. And then you eventually will taper down, usually over about 3 months. The nice thing about people wearing a patch and then perhaps having the gum available, or even a nicotine inhaler, if that's what works for them, is that it's when they get those extra, even that social cue or that little twitch, right, that they want a cigarette, they pop the gum. And the thing what I always tell my patients is not gum, right? Like, it's a choo-choo park, right? Choo-choo park. And then, and you can really use up to 8 a day. So I find that nicotine replacement is a really nice way to minimize that role of the withdrawal symptoms, which can be just brutal for people. And then there's other oral medications, but we can talk about that later. But I'd love to know how Dale thinks about, if he ever tried the nicotine replacement.
Well, I did. I did the gum, I did the patch, I did hypnosis, I did acupuncture 2 or 3 times. And again, you have to remember, this is 20 years ago and things have changed. The products have changed. And I did not have a lot of luck with it. There was times I had the patch on and I was chewing the gum and I had a cigarette in my other hand. And, it just overload. I think the bottom line was what Corey said. Once it's in your mind that you're going to quit, that's the most important thing. It's in your mind. And then anything that you can do after that, go for a walk, have a glass of water, do exercises. If it was bad for me, my staff was lighting cigarettes and putting them in my ashtray on my desk. And when I would leave my office, I'd come back, there'd be a lit cigarette there because I got cranky. I was pretty miserable, and the patches and the gum, that helped a lot. But I was still cranky, and for me, it ended up being the fear factor that I was going to die that was got me through this. But I definitely think there's a place for the Nicorette, the gum, and the patch, and the important thing, though, is get it in your mind that you want to quit.
And this is actually where I'm going to bring in Steve. And this is because when I was talking with Steve, and again, you can watch a story, it's posted to the SaskQuits Facebook group, but one of the things that we talked about was trying to manage those triggers and what replacement activities a person might have. So if you can put some thought to this, ambassadors, Steve, how is the journey going for you? Like, are you finding that you need replacement activities, or is your mind able to push you through right now? How's it going?
Well, I guess I've kind of made it as simple as possible. Where I used to walk outside at work with a pack of smokes in my pocket, or I used to go to the garage with a pack of smokes in my pocket, instead of taking the package and sitting there and drinking my coffee and having 1, 2, or 3, I leave them inside only take one with me. It's much the same as when you're trying to diet. Instead of taking the bag of chips with you to the couch, you just put a few in a bowl and you walk away because it takes effort to go and get it, right? So that's where I'm started right now. Where I want to end up is much like Dale and Corey have been talking about, and Christy too. The last time I quit, my mind was ready. My body was not. I was on Champex, made it through. The second I got off Champex, it came back full force like I hadn't even tried it. The time before that, though, I made it right through. I wasn't even through the Champex to the date. And I went to reach for them one day. It was almost a full pack of cigarettes. And my mind just said, you're done. I crumpled them up, threw them in the garbage and walked outside, and I didn't touch them again for almost a year. So you were earlier talking about the anxiety and stuff. And to me, as a smoker, picking the date is the anxiety. I think you have to decide you want to do it and then just let your mind and body determine what the day is, and it'll come.
That is such a good point. And it's funny because I know in the stories, Dale, you told me about that moment at the top of the stairs where you're like, nope, if I get out of this, I am done with smokes. And Christy, you told me the story of your mom and her lung cancer diagnosis and how that was the day you threw that pack into the garbage at Royal University Hospital in the Parkade. And I'm listening to this, and Dr. Pence, can you weigh in a little bit on some of those replacement activities and just managing what Steve was going through? I could kind of see you nodding there. Any advice for Steve right now?
Gosh, it's I mean, I listened to Steve and his story with Champex, and you know that, and everybody's kind of experience with whether they've decided to use a medicine to help them or others. I think what's important for people to know is really on average, like 8 to 10 quit attempts in a lifetime is pretty normal. So these ideas that, this, well, some people call them failures, but really this wasn't your time is kind of how I like to tell my patients. Don't give up, because another time will present itself. And I think that, what you've described with a few people like Dale at the top of the stairs and Christy and everybody is these defining moments. And the defining moments, and I see it a lot in the hospital. We have individuals who might get admitted with a heart attack, right? That's their defining moment. And that's when they switch. And so we of course want to try and create less dramatic moments like that, but defining moments is really, I think, something. And so finding where that meaning is for you, and that's what I've heard other people say. It's what's the meaning for this? And so once you've determined that, and it's going to be different for everyone. So I'm not sure I answered the question about replacement activities, Jen. I'm sorry, but I kind of went on a ramble. I'm going to stop there though.
No, that's totally okay. And actually, yeah, replacement activities. I know that Corey really mentioned the role that spirituality plays for him, that getting involved with the teachings from his culture really helped him. And I'm wondering, for people who don't have sort of that rich culture to draw on, Corey, do you have any suggestions for us for other replacement activities? I know for Dale, it turned out to be, it looks like exercise, but what are your thoughts there, Corey?
Honestly, like I know not everybody has their rich cultural background. I think the one thing that I try and recommend is to try be physically, active as much as you can. That was another outlet for me. Many of my quit attempts, right? I turned to sports and going outdoors, spending a lot of times outdoors was really helped me when in the summer, beautiful out, go golfing, things like that. And I try to surround myself with people that had the same mindset as I did. I wanted to be positive. I wanted to, clear up my lungs and things like that. And they were in the same mindset. So that really helped my journey to go from, okay, I'm kind of, to I know I want to. So those are some things that I've always did is that physical activity. I know not everybody's fit to do something, but just like, we go for just a walk. A day, a daily walk, half an hour, 45 minutes a day, that'll help with that process, with your brain understanding, okay, this is good for me, instead of, sitting on a couch and having a cigarette, right? So that's another avenue that I've always preached to the youth and young adults that I've worked with is trying getting to some type of physical activity. So.
And go ahead, Dr. Pens, I see you waving.
Yeah, no, what Corey's saying is totally resonates with me, and I just wanted to maybe offer it to the listeners out there that it does actually make physiologically that exercise is naturally an excellent replacement activity when you're trying to quit smoking, because we know that exercise, a brisk walk, right? It does not have to be strenuous, but something that pushes you, okay, it's going to release endorphins, and those endorphins, right, are actually attaching to those same nicotine receptors that this nicotine from your cigarette does. So you will actually feel better by doing it. So it absolutely makes perfect physiologic sense on what Corey is describing.
And go ahead, Kirsty. I'd love to hear from you. And then I've got a couple more questions coming up from our chat. But yes, I'd love to hear your thoughts on the role of exercise, Kirsty.
I was also just going to mention not only exercise, but self-care in general. Go for a massage, or go for acupuncture, or go get a facial, or get your nails done. Like, just feel good about yourself. Find ways to, feel good about yourself. Go get your hair cut. Use that money that you were going to burn on cigarettes to get that new hairstyle you want, or whatever. Just do positive things that way as well.
It's funny how even just having your nails done, hey, like a little bit of glam can help.
Yes, go buy those expensive shoes you want, or just, self-care in general. Massages are so good for, making you feel good and helping you sleep too.
And sort of maybe connecting that mind body together, I'm guessing.
Yeah, yeah.
I know that in our chat box, we have a question. Did you notice a difference with your lungs, just the way you were breathing after you quit? So I'm going to throw that one out, especially to Kirsty, to Dale, and to Corey. Did you notice a difference with your lungs?
Absolutely. It didn't take too long actually either, because I did start walking. I felt better about myself. I started to eat better, and all those things just kind of pile up on each other. And the more cardio I did, because the more I could walk, your breathing just, yeah, it's amazing. It's truly night and day difference once you quit. It's so worth it.
And Corey, I see you nodding too. How did your lungs feel sort of with your before and your after through that journey?
Honestly, it was like night and day. I was trying to look back and try to remember, because it's such a long time ago. It's been like 20 some odd years since I've quit smoking. But I would notice my breathing would be a lot lighter once I quit smoking. I found I can run a lot longer. At that time when I quit smoking, I started working with youth, so they pushed me to be more active at the treatment facility. So we had a full-size gym, so I'd be running around for 5 hours out of the 8-hour shift, and that really helped me and motivated me to feel better. And now, now that I'm getting older, like, I had asthma when I was smaller too, so that asthma is starting to come back now, and I could start to feel it now. So thinking back, if I continue to smoke, how bad my breathing would be right now if I was still smoking. But it was like night and day once I quit smoking.
Wow. Okay, night and day is Corey's review on it. And Dale, did you notice a difference in your lungs? And this is an interesting question for you, because you were diagnosed with COPD.
Yeah, I was diagnosed with severe COPD, and my breathing was bad already, and it got a little bit better right away, but I had to learn how to do things again. Like the exercise made such a huge difference. I mean, when I first started, I could hardly do anything, and then the more you went. I started going once or twice a week, and then it was 4 times a week, and then putting there every day, and it just made such a huge difference. And going along with everything else, the social aspect of it, with as Corey said, surrounding yourself with people that are doing the same thing as you is huge. It's really huge. Encouraging each other, just like we are doing right now. That's very, very a big motivator right there.
And also not pushing away anyone who is trying to get this journey going, but let's be real, it's hard. It is so hard. And Steve, I want to bring you in a little bit because I know you play hockey, and I'm wondering how are your lungs holding up?
Well, I like the comments of night and day different, because the year that I did quit smoking, within, like, I work a physical job. I was running stairs, carrying tool bags. And within weeks of quitting smoking the first time, where I made it for that year, it's just like they said, you all of a sudden can push that extra flight of stairs and you don't even know you're doing it. And then, and by the time the year was up there, and I felt great. And within 2 days of smoking, and I didn't go back, I was a pack a day smoker before I quit. And then within 2 days of maybe having 3 or 4 cigarettes, which got me back hooked, you could just feel it was like somebody put vice grips on your lungs again. It within a couple of days, it was probably half the lung capacity again that you worked a year to get.
And Dr. Pence, what was going on with Steve's lungs at that point?
Yeah, it's I mean, that's very common to hear. So we know that, in tobacco, right? So when we're burning a cigarette, in addition to the nicotine that's feeding, our addiction, it's, over 7,000 chemicals, and those chemicals are causing all types of inflammation in the airways. And so it's the body's response, right? And it's not the same thing as I wouldn't call it so much as an immune response, but your body remembers, right? Those epithelial cells in the airways remember what it was like when you were previously smoking, and they go right back to it. And so it creates inflammation, which creates more mucus, which causes tightening of those muscles in the airways, and all of that creates clogged pipes, essentially. Okay, and that's why people feel like it's difficult to breathe. And so I should just note, whether it's Dale, when he quit after a diagnosis of severe COPD, or Steve, who is younger than Dale, it never is actually too late to quit. There will always be benefits to quitting smoking, and the benefits will be different for every person. But just to know that there 100% will always be benefits, and just remember that it's never too late.
And even just dropping it down by 1 or 2, and then by maybe 1 or 2 more the next day, that's a step in the right direction. Yeah. Okay.
Yes, absolutely.
And I have another question coming in from our group. And again, if you're watching this on Facebook, go and put it in the comments section. We'll make sure to get your question, or even just your thoughts on this. Like, you might also have an experience that you'd like to share, and we're happy to share that here. A person has asked, I'd like to encourage my mom to quit. She's been smoking for 45 years. How can I help motivate her without pushing her away? So who will I throw this one to? I'm going to start with Corey, actually. And then if any of the ambassadors maybe want to jump in, it is hard, especially when it's somebody very close to you that you love and they're still smoking, you might not be. What can you do without making that person feel bad or wrong?
Honestly, like you kind of put the hammer to the nail. It is very hard when it's someone's close to you, a family member. It's one of the hardest things to try to get them to think differently about smoking. When someone's been smoking like 45 years, it's not too late to quit. I often try and get them to think towards the future, 5, 10 years, 15 years on the road. How will it be? I often say, I want you here 10 years from now, 15 years from now, 20 years, those types of things. I had a sister, also fall to cancer, same thing I told to her, you know, and she couldn't overcome the addiction. I would say just be supportive as much as you can with your mom, you know, and try even harm reduction. I often look at harm reduction more than just quitting. If you can take those baby steps with her, if she can cut down from, you know, 15 smokes, 10 smokes, that's a start, you know. Just those little tiny steps, they equal into something. So if she's down to, you know, 5 smokes a day, that's a win, you know, for in my books, right? So you know, just being there, supporting her through that whole process and understanding that it's hard to quit, you know, and going through all those times of her being cranky or not having one with the coffee, things like that, you know, and try help her replace those behaviors. So.
And I'm actually going to get Dr. Pence to weigh in here too. Just there is an emotional side to this and dealing with it. Is there anything you would add to that, especially in terms of harm reduction?
Yeah, definitely. You know, I see it in my clinic all the time because, you know, part of my job is to number one, inquire and ask about people's smoking and vaping and other drug use, for example. And also one of my agendas is to help people, or at least to put that in their mind. But absolutely, you know, when you have someone who is, you know, and I have patients who, yes, are what you're describing with your mom, smoking for 45 years. I mean, these are committed individuals. They started early, and that addiction is very difficult. And so the best that we can do as family, the best that I can do as a doctor to my patient is to, like Corey described, is find a common ground, be encouraging, be positive, because my God, like everybody's been describing, this is such a hard journey. So why would we want to make it harder on the people we love or the patients I care about? We don't. So I think that being kind is one way, and talking about, well, you know, maybe, you know, what do you think? What do you think could, and hearing their ideas, because maybe they actually have one that they've been afraid to say out loud. Give them that opportunity. So I just say, be kind and be supportive.
And maybe even celebrate the little things. The little baby steps aren't such baby steps. They really do take us down the journey. And I actually have a question here from Trent, and it's a bit of a comment, bit of a question. Trent says, such appreciation for everyone on a quitting journey. I'm curious about the panel's experiences about their physical addiction. Do they remember a point in their quitting journey where there was a really noticeable change in the physical addiction to tobacco or smoking? And would that noticeable change, almost like you could feel the physical side slide away? Was it within like a week, 2 weeks, a month, more? I'm going to open this up for discussion. Who would like to go first? I'm looking at you, Dale. Do you remember the point at the quitting journey where you felt that noticeable physical difference?
For me, it was probably about 2 weeks. And, you know, I got over the crankiness part of it, and you know, I started to feel pretty good, and then it was, oh yes, you know, this is definitely different, and yeah, I would say a week and a half, 2 weeks, and then a little longer. It just got better and better and better, and even with the COPD, I mean, it could have been a whole lot worse. So I looked at that. One other thing that I just wanted to comment about on this lady that with her mother, even if she's a pack a day, just leave one a day. Just leave one a day in the package, and then the next day another one, and just give yourself a goal, and along the lines of what Christy said, reward yourself. Do something that's, you know, there's a cost there, so the cost should be rewarded. Anyway.
And Christy, I'm going to throw it to you there. How long? I know for Dale, he's saying of, okay, 2.5 weeks until he noticed that physical addiction, like that side sort of sliding away. Do you remember roughly how long it was for you?
Well, for me, I would say it was quite a bit longer, because probably what people don't know is that I was diagnosed with bacterial pneumonia a couple weeks before I actually quit smoking, and I smoked through the pneumonia, which just completely blows me away now when I think about it. And yeah, so I had to deal with the healing of the pneumonia. So it was probably, I want to say, about a month before I really started to notice that I was feeling a lot better and my lung capacity was going. But when I quit, I was done. So for me, it was just looking forward. I wasn't looking back because I couldn't go back there. So
The
yeah.
one-way street. Well, then you'd throw them in the garbage at RUH and you weren't buying more. Steve, I know you've been through parts of this journey before. In terms of the physical symptoms, when would you say it kind of wore off for you? Where was that landmark?
Are you asking when I throw this away, or are you asking when I started to feel better?
When you started to feel better, when the grouchiness kind of subsided and when the physical draw, when you could feel that starting to leave you?
Well, if you ask my kids, I'm grouchy all the time, so it doesn't change anything. But no, I'm right in the middle. I think when I finally, the last time when I threw them in the garbage, the mind and the body was ready. And then I don't think I had many mood swings at all after that. It was every day I woke up, I felt a little bit better. And unlike most people who quit smoking, I actually lost 30 pounds that time because I did the exercise and I dropped the alcohol, because the alcohol directly goes with the cigarettes. And I mean, I made a wholesale change at that time, and I'm planning, and the goal is to get back there. I just have to wait. What I do is I need a kick over the hill. I just need that last little piece to help me with my journey, because I'm not sure willpower alone is going to do this one, but I'm not giving up because I got 2 kids that are depending on me. So
your beautiful daughters, and you got the strength of this group behind you too. I mean, I don't know if we can arrange for somebody to come and kick you. We'll avoid that for now. But I see Corey sort of nodding through this too, because you've been there, you've done that. In terms of the physical side of the addiction, when did you feel it leave you? Like sort of that 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks mark, or a little longer?
I think, well, once I made up my mind, like Christy talked about, I knew I was looking forward to, just like as she was, done looking back. I found it was probably, say, 3 weeks to the month. I probably started to feel a little bit better. As I mentioned before, I moved to different jobs. So keeping busy and being active with those young guys and thinking I'm young and I'm not, it really kind of made it a lot easier for me not to even notice the physical side effects, when I'm not having that nicotine in my body and stuff like that. So I would say probably about 3 weeks to a month. And then once I start understanding, like I could start having the stuff come up, the phlegm and all that stuff, I started understanding, okay, my lungs are starting to heal themselves. They're starting to clean, right? So that's probably about when it really started to kind of shift into better states. So.
And Dr. Pence, what are our lungs doing in that time after the cigarettes go in the garbage and your mind and your body are together? What's happening inside our lungs?
Yeah, so it's really, for a simple kind of thought, they're just settling down. They're no longer kind of being, if you think about when, us inhaling the chemicals that come from burning a cigarette, those 7,000 chemicals, that stimulates that inflammatory response, right? So when you quit, you're giving yourself a break, you're giving yourself a rest, and really, like, the lines of your airways finally have a chance to, now those cells that have been attacked, right, and under inflammation, they can start to heal. So really, that's what your body's trying to do, because it's been given a break from kind of that what I call an assault. You're kind of, that the smoke is really assaulting those airways. So that's probably the simplest way I could describe it.
Okay. And again, if anybody has thoughts on this, comments, if you're on Facebook Live, put them in the comments. If you're on Zoom, absolutely, you can just throw something into the chat box and we'd be happy to get it. We actually don't have a whole lot of time left. We've hit our 45 minutes. I know that Bethany, we've tried to cover a lot of ground here, I think, tonight. Is there anybody else who has questions or comments? You have, like, I'd say another minute or two to get them up here, but I'd like to say thank you. Thank you to Dr. Pence. Thank you to Corey Gamble. Thank you to Dale Roach and to Steve Kerwin and to Christy Temple-Brisky. Thank you also all of our audience for being here tonight. This is actually, it feels like such an encouraging group and a group where we don't get down on each other. You are really lucky with the community you've built here, Bethany.
You took the words right out of my mouth, Jen. Like, this has been an amazing panel discussion. Thank you, Jen, for facilitating. Lots of information and encouragement, like you said. And so thank you to our panelists for being here this evening and sharing that knowledge and sharing your experience. It's so valuable and it is so encouraging. And like Steve said, the Saskatchewan Quits group has really been a support, and Jen, you echoed that as well. So for those of you who are in the Saskatchewan Quits Facebook group, just because we're wrapping up the month of May kind of with this panel here, it doesn't mean that the Facebook group is going anywhere. It's still going to exist. We're still there, and we encourage you to continue to share your updates and your experiences and your questions. And so I hope that the people who are in that group can continue to support each other, and the Lung Association is always there to support you as well. So thank you again to our panelists and to Jen for facilitating. Thank you to all of you who are watching and who submitted questions. Just, I guess, a last thing. So if you are in the Saskatchewan Quits group and you've been doing the personal challenge for the month of May, we are wrapping up the personal challenge at the end of May here. And so watch for an email in your inbox to complete a post survey, letting us know how the month went for you, but also how you felt about how we delivered the personal challenge. So watch for that. There's some really amazing prizes. Once you complete that post survey, you'll be entered in to win things like an iPad, a WestJet gift card, all sorts of really awesome things, and we'll be posting about those prizes in the Facebook group over the next week or two. But other than that, I just want to really say again, thank you so much to everybody who's here this evening. I hope that you all have taken something out of it, whether you were panelists or whether you were viewing. And if you do have any other questions, feel free to reach us in that Saskatchewan Quits Facebook group or reach us at the Lung Association. So thank you all again so much, and have a wonderful evening.